3 years of my life, every dollar I had saved, and now he wanted my name on another loan. I said no. That was the moment everything fell apart. And I mean everything. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. I moved in with my brother after my divorce finalized in the spring of 2022. I was 31, broke in the way that divorce makes you broke. Not just financially but structurally. Like someone had pulled the load-bearing wall out of a house and left everything leaning. My ex-husband and I had split the apartment, split the furniture, split the streaming subscriptions. What I walked away with was 2 suitcases, a box of kitchen stuff, and a job as a dental office coordinator that paid me $21 an hour. My brother said it would be temporary. His exact words were, "Stay as long as you need, Ray." That's what he called me. Ray, short for my middle name, the name only family used. His wife, standing behind him in the doorway of their 4-bedroom house in Naperville, smiled in that way that doesn't reach the eyes. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I was raw from the divorce. I was suspicious of everything. I gave myself 6 months. That was the plan. 6 months to save up a deposit, get my footing, find a place. I had a real job. I had a plan, and I had a brother who loved me. What could go wrong? The house was big. They had 2 kids, a son, 8 years old, sharp and sweet, always bringing me Legos to look at, and a daughter, 5, who had recently decided her life's mission was to follow me from room to room asking why. Why is the sky blue? Why do we have fingernails? Why does coffee smell like that but taste different? I loved her for it. I loved both of them in the easy, uncomplicated way you love kids when you're the aunt and not the one responsible for them. Except slowly I became responsible for them. It started small. My sister-in-law worked as a medical billing specialist, mostly from home, and she started asking me to handle afternoon pickup since I got off at 4 and the kids got out at 3:15. Just until she wrapped up her afternoon calls, she said. Of course, I said. I was living there for practically nothing. I offered to pay rent when I moved in, and my brother waved me off, so I was glad to contribute. Pickup took 45 minutes round trip. Fine. Then it became pickup plus homework help. Then homework help plus dinner prep, because she had a work call, running long, and my brother didn't get home until 6:30. Then it was all of that plus getting the kids bathed and ready for bed on the nights my brother had work dinners, which happened to be 2 or 3 nights a week. By month 2, I was putting in 4 to 5 hours of child-related labor every single day after working a full 8-hour shift. I didn't complain. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I owed them. I was living in their house, eating their groceries. I hadn't paid a dime toward rent. I could help with the kids. But I also noticed things. My sister-in-law's calls sometimes ended at 4:30, and she would come downstairs to the kitchen where I was already halfway through making pasta and just sit down at the island with her phone. Not help. Sit. My brother would come home, kiss the kids, ask how their day was, and then disappear into the garage with a beer. When I mentioned once, lightly, that I might start taking a night class to finish a project management certification I'd been putting off, my sister-in-law made this face. A brief one. She said, "Oh, that would be tricky on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are my late nights." She didn't say I couldn't do it. She just made it very clear that if I wasn't available, nobody was covering for me. I didn't take the class. My friend Juno, we'd been close since college. She was one of the few people I stayed in regular contact with during the divorce. Juno would listen to me on the phone and get increasingly quiet in the way that meant she was holding back from saying something. Finally, in month 3, she said, "You know they're not going to change if you keep covering for them, right?" I told her she didn't understand the situation. I had nowhere else to go. I was saving money. It was temporary. "You keep saying temporary," she said. "What does that mean to you?" Like exactly? I didn't have a number. That was the problem. What I did have by month 4 was a spreadsheet on my laptop where I'd started tracking hours. I don't know why I started doing it. Maybe I needed to feel like I wasn't crazy. I tracked pickup, homework sessions, dinner prep, bath time. The Saturday morning, my sister-in-law had a spa appointment that turned into a full day out while I watched both kids. I tracked the groceries I bought with my own money when we ran low, and nobody asked me to, but also nobody said thank you. By the end of month 4, I had logged 263 hours of unpaid childcare and household labor. At minimum wage in Illinois, that was almost $3,000. At the going rate for a nanny in the suburbs, it was closer to 5. I closed the spreadsheet and didn't open it again for months. Because then the loan thing happened. The first one. My brother came to me in month 5 looking sheepish, in a way that, on him, looked almost charming. He wanted to start a side business, a pressure washing and exterior cleaning service. He'd been talking about it for years. He had a buddy who would go in with him. It was a great market in the suburbs. He needed $8,000 for equipment. His credit score, he explained in the roundabout way, he explained things he was embarrassed about, was not in great shape. Between the mortgage and the car payments and a credit card situation he was working through, he couldn't get approved for the loan on his own. He needed me to co-sign. I want to be clear about something. My credit score at that point was 741. I had rebuilt it carefully after the divorce, paid every card on time, kept my utilization low. That score was not an accident. It was 2 years of being meticulous when I had very little to be meticulous with. I said yes. Because he was my brother, because I was living in his house, because I told myself he wouldn't ask if he wasn't sure he could handle it. The pressure washing business lasted about 7 months. His buddy backed out in month 3. My brother kept it going alone for a while, but the equipment needed maintenance and he didn't have time, and eventually he let it lapse. He made 8 payments, then stopped. The creditor called me, then called me again. My credit score dropped 41 points. My brother was sorry. He was genuinely sorry, I believe that. He paid me back slowly, not the full amount, but most of it over the next year in chunks whenever he had extra. I told myself it was fine. It was a mistake. It was handled. It was not handled. Because 18 months into living there, 18 months, not 6, my sister-in-law sat me down one evening after the kids were in bed. She was using her calm voice, the one that had a structure underneath it. She said they'd been talking and they thought it was time to formalize my contribution to the household. I thought she was going to ask me to pay rent. I had mentally prepared for that. I thought it was fair, actually. I'd been there long enough. I could afford $600 or $700 a month by then. She said they were thinking $100 a month. I kept my face even. $1,100. For the room I was sleeping in, which was a guest room with a bathroom in the hall, in a house where I was also, by this point, functionally employed as their after-school childcare. Said I needed to think about it. My brother jumped in, softer than his wife. It's just, you're settled now, Ray. You've got savings. And the kids really rely on you. It wouldn't be right not to compensate you. He stopped himself because he heard it too. Compensate you. As if paying rent and being compensated were the same direction of money. I said I needed to think about it. That night I called Juno. I told her the number. Ray, she said. I need you to hear me. That is more than I pay for my 1-bedroom in Wicker Park. I already knew that. I knew it walking away from the conversation. $1,100 was not a contribution to a household. It was rent for a room in someone else's house where I was also working for free. I lay awake doing math. My take-home after taxes was about $3,200 a month. If I paid them $1,800, I had $2,100 left. Utilities, my car payment and insurance, my phone, my student loan, groceries. I bought at least half the groceries. I had been doing that for months. It would leave me nothing, literally nothing to save. I would be spinning in place indefinitely, and I still had not taken that project management class. I asked around, searched listings. There was a 1-bedroom apartment in a building 12 minutes from my office for $1,350 a month. It was small, maybe 700 square feet, but it had a washer-dryer hookup and parking, and it was mine. Just mine. I scheduled a tour without telling anyone. The apartment was perfect in the way that only a space that belongs entirely to you can be perfect. The walls were beige, and the carpet was that standard rental gray, and it didn't matter at all, because it was quiet. I stood in the middle of the living room during the tour and heard nothing. No kids arguing about the Nintendo. No my sister-in-law's voice carrying through the ceiling from her home office. No garage door signaling my brother was home and I should start wrapping up dinner. I put down a deposit that afternoon. First month and security deposit $2,700. It cleaned out almost everything I had saved over 18 months of careful living. But I had a move-in date. I went home and started quietly organizing my things. I wasn't hiding it exactly. I just wasn't announcing it yet. I knew how the announcement would go, and I needed to be ready. I told my brother first on a Tuesday evening when his wife had taken the kids to her mother's. I sat down across from him at the kitchen table and I said I'd found an apartment, and I was moving out at the end of the month, 2 weeks away. I watched his face. He didn't get angry. That surprised me. He went quiet for a long moment and then he said, "You're serious?" I said I was. He said, "We really need you here, Ray." I said I knew. I said I was sorry, but I needed my own space and I needed to stop putting my life on hold. He said, and I want to remember this correctly because it was the moment I understood who we had both become in that house. He said, "I thought we were helping each other. I thought about my 263 hours. I thought about my credit score dropping 41 points. I thought about the project management certification I never started." I said, "I know you believe that." He didn't say anything else. I left the table and went to my room. His wife was harder. She came to find me the next morning after the kids left for school, and she stood in the doorway of my room while I was getting ready for work. She was using the calm voice again, but there were edges in it now. She said that I had obligations to this family. She said the kids were attached to me and it would be damaging to pull out without adequate transition time. She used the word damaging, said it like a clinical fact, like I was a tire they were rotating and removing me would throw off the alignment. I said I was giving them 2 weeks. She said 2 weeks wasn't enough. She said the least I could do after everything they'd done for me was stay through the end of the school year. The end of the school year was 4.5 months away. I said I wasn't able to do that. She said, voice dropping low, that they had been carrying me for a year and a half and this was how I was repaying them. I thought of the $8,000 loan, the 41 credit score points, the 263 hours, the groceries. Every dinner I'd made, every pickup, every bath, every homework session, every Saturday they'd had to themselves because I was there. I said, "I think we have a different memory of how this went." She left without responding. The next 2 weeks were cold in a way that was almost impressive. My sister-in-law stopped speaking to me except when necessary. My brother tried to play peacemaker, coming to my room at night to say she was just stressed, she was worried about the kids, she didn't mean it. I was kind to him. I said I understood. I kept packing. The kids were the hard part. My nephew figured out something was happening before I told him. He came to find me one evening while I was sorting books. "Are you moving?" he asked. He was looking at the boxes. I sat down on the floor with him. I said yes, I was moving to my own apartment, but I wasn't going far, and I was still going to be their aunt. He didn't cry. He just got very still the way he did when he was processing something. He said, "Because of Mom and Dad?" I says it was because I needed my own space. He nodded. He didn't say anything else. He picked up a book from my box, looked at the cover, and put it back. My niece cried. She cried the way 5-year-olds cry, fully and without embarrassment, and she asked me to stay. And I told her I would come back and see her and call her, and she could come visit my new apartment, and she could pick what color towels I got for my bathroom. She liked that. She stopped crying to tell me she thought I should get the purple ones. Moving day was a Saturday. I had rented a small cargo van, and Juno came with her boyfriend to help. We got everything out in under 4 hours. My brother carried boxes without speaking much. My sister-in-law stayed upstairs. The kids were at their grandmother's. When the van was loaded, my brother stood on the driveway and looked at me the way he used to look at me when we were kids. And something had gone wrong, and he wasn't sure whose fault it was. He said, "You sure about this?" I said I was. He hugged me. A real hug, longer than I expected. He said he was sorry things got complicated. I said I was sorry too. I thought that was the end of it. I thought we would take a few weeks to cool off, find our way to a new normal, maybe some Sunday dinners once a month, the kids coming to visit. I thought my sister-in-law would eventually accept it. I drove away thinking, it's going to be okay. 10 days later, I got a call from my bank. There was a loan application in my name, filed 3 days before my move-out date. A personal loan for $14,500. I had not filed a loan application. My hands went cold. I pulled over. I was driving to the grocery store, and I sat in the parking lot and called the bank back. The loan officer walked me through it. The application had been submitted online, using my social security number, my date of birth, my address, the address of my brother's house, and my employment information. The account number provided for direct deposit was not mine. I asked the officer to flag it as fraudulent and hold the application. She did. She gave me a case number. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes. I kept trying to find another explanation. Someone's had stolen my identity. It was a coincidence. There was some kind of error. But my social security number, my employment details, my brother's address, which was still listed as my address because I hadn't had time to update everything yet. Whoever had done this knew things that weren't public information. I thought about what my brother had said on the driveway. "You sure about this?" I called Juno. I told her what happened. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said, "Ray, you need to get ahead of this." I called the credit bureaus and placed a fraud alert. I called the bank again and formally disputed the application. I filed a police report. Something I did not want to do. Something I sat on the phone with the non-emergency line for 45 minutes dreading. Because Juno and her boyfriend, who happened to be a paralegal, told me I needed the paper trail. Then I called my brother. He picked up on the second ring, and the way he said hello, too casual, slightly too fast, told me that some part of him had been waiting for this call. I said, "There's a fraudulent loan application in my name, filed from your address, using my personal information." Silence. I said, "I need you to tell me you didn't do this." More silence. And then quietly, haltingly, it came out. He hadn't done it himself, that's how he framed it first. His wife had found some paperwork in the guest room. I had left some documents in the closet by accident. A folder with old tax returns and a social security card I'd misplaced and had been looking for. And she had thought that if they could just get this loan, it would help them cover some things while they adjusted to losing my contribution to the house. The plan was to make the payments themselves. It was just a bridge. He would have told me. He would have told me. I did not yell. I am someone who goes very quiet when something truly bad happens, and I went very quiet. So I said, "Do you understand what you're describing is a federal crime?" He started talking faster. It wasn't like that. She didn't think I'd actually find out before the money came through. They were going to pay it off, and I'd never have to know. He was trying to make it sound smaller than it was, and it was not small. I said I had filed a police report. That's when he started to sound scared. He asked me not to do anything until we could talk in person. He said his wife was going through something, that the stress of the household changes had affected her judgment. He said it wouldn't go anywhere. The loan hadn't been approved yet. No money had moved. I said, "That's because I caught it." I want to tell you that what I felt in that moment was righteous and clear, that I had the cold certainty of someone who has been wronged and knows exactly what to do next. But the truth is, I sat in that parking lot and I cried. I cried because it was my brother, because I had co-signed his loan and watched his business fail and made his kids dinner for 18 months, and he had let this happen, or done this. The line between the two felt thin, and I didn't want to examine it. Juno's boyfriend walked me through my options. The police report was filed. The bank's fraud department was handling it. Because the loan had not been funded, the legal exposure was attempted fraud rather than executed fraud. Serious, but with a different set of consequences. He said I had to decide how far I wanted to take it. I thought about it for 3 days. I called my mom on day 2. I hadn't wanted to. Because my mom is the kind of person who immediately starts trying to find the middle and smooth things over. And I didn't want middle ground yet. I needed to be in my feelings before someone redirected me toward resolution. But I called her because I was running out of people to think out loud with. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "He let her do that. Just that. He let her do that." Which was the thing, wasn't it? Maybe he hadn't typed in the application himself, but he had access to those documents. He knew what his wife was. I called my brother back on day 3. I told him I was not pursuing criminal charges at this time. I want to be clear about that phrase, "at this time," because I meant it precisely. I told him the fraud alert was staying on my credit for 1 year. I told him that if any further unauthorized use of my information occurred, I would not hesitate. I told him that whatever restitution looked like for the credit score damage from the first loan, I expected us to figure it out. He said yes to everything. He sounded hollowed out. I said one more thing. I said, "I want you to understand that I tracked the hours. I have a spreadsheet, 263 hours of childcare and household work in the first 4 months alone, and I never stopped after that. I know what I contributed to that house. I want you to know that I know." He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "I didn't know you did that." "I know you didn't," I said. "I didn't send him the spreadsheet. I thought about it. But in the end, the point wasn't the numbers. The point was that I had them. That was 8 months ago. I live in my apartment now, the one with the gray carpet and the quiet, and I have finished the project management certification. I passed the exam on my first attempt. I've been applying for coordinator roles that would pay me significantly more than what I make now, and last month I had a second interview at a healthcare group downtown that I think went well. I still see the kids. This is the part that matters the most to me and the part I am the most careful about. I have a standing Saturday morning arrangement with my nephew and niece. Their parents drop them off, or I pick them up, depending on the week. We make breakfast together, usually pancakes, and then we do whatever they want. Last week we went to the Nature Museum. The week before, my niece chose a movie, and my nephew made her sit through half of mine first, so that seemed healthy. My niece did choose the purple towels, by the way. I let her pick them out at Target the second weekend she visited. She carried them to the register herself. My sister-in-law and I do not speak beyond logistics. I am civil. I am not warm. I have decided that is enough. My brother and I are finding something. It's fragile and it doesn't have a name yet. He called me last month on a Thursday, not about anything, just to talk. We talked for 40 minutes about nothing in particular. An old TV show we used to watch, some family news, whether Mom's new dog was as neurotic as she claimed. It felt almost normal. At the end he said, "I'm glad you're doing okay." I said I was glad too. I didn't say I knew I would be. I didn't say I was always going to be okay. You just made it harder to get here. I thought it, but some things you keep for yourself. My apartment is quiet in the mornings. I make coffee before 6 and sit at the window that looks out over the parking lot of a dry cleaner and a nail salon. And I know that is not a glamorous view, but it is my view, and nobody is going to walk through that door and need something from me before I've had a single sip. I built this. From nothing, from a divorce, from a guest room in someone else's house where I slowly gave away more than I should have. I built it back, and that spreadsheet? Still on my laptop. I haven't deleted it. Not because I need it anymore, but because I made it in the months when I wasn't sure I was seeing things clearly. And it turns out I was. Sometimes you just need proof that you were right about what was happening to you. I was right. And I got out. And the purple towels looks great.